Hi, this is Dave Belleville from LightWave Technologies, and welcome to this LightWave product feature tutorial, Working with Optional Elements. In our March 2020 maintenance releases of LightWave Client and LightWave Server, we included some improvements to optional element handling. These features are described in our online documentation for both LightWave Client and LightWave Server in the Developer Guide section under Advanced Topics. But in this tutorial, I'm going to drill down a bit and provide some background on what optional elements are and how you might deal with them in a simple use case. Let me start by explaining what we mean by optional elements. This is a DDL definition that represents a simplified postal address structure, and note that the structure contains two address lines. If we populate this structure with address data, including both address lines, it would be serialized into a JSON structure that looks something like this. So in this example, all of the address fields are populated in the DDL structure and all appear in the JSON. But what if John Doe doesn't live in an apartment and the second address line is empty? If that's the case, then by default, the second address field will be serialized as an empty element in the JSON message. And that's probably not what we want. In most cases, if a field is empty, we don't want it to be serialized at all. We really want our JSON to look like this. Let's take a look at a slightly more complex example. In this DDL, we're using the address definition to define a structure with both a mailing and shipping address. Now, if we populate this structure with both a mailing and shipping address, it's serialized into a JSON structure that looks something like this. John now has a P.O. box for a mailing address and a physical address on Main Street for shipping. And yes, we have our empty address 2 elements in there still. Now, what if the mailing and shipping addresses are the same and the entire shipping address structure in the IPM is empty? By default, that would result in JSON that might look like this. Again, probably not what we want. It's more likely that if the shipping address is empty, we don't want it in the message at all. We probably want it to look like this. So how do we make these empty fields go away? We do it by editing the message schema definitions and applying properties or attributes, depending on whether you're using LightWave Client or LightWave Server, that control whether or not these fields appear in the message. There are 3 properties available. They are hide if empty, is set, and min occurs. I'm going to focus on hide if empty and is set because while min occurs has been available in both products for some time, min occurs is now deprecated. It still works, but we would prefer that it not be used for new development. New schema definitions should use hide if empty as the alternative to min occurs now. So, how does hide if empty work? Hide if empty is a property or attribute that may be set on any element to indicate that if the source element is empty, it should not be serialized into the message. So what does empty mean? Well, an element is considered empty if it is filled with the string padding character. So if the padding character for the API definition or the type structure or an individual field is spaces, and you copy spaces to the entire IPM or structure or field, it's considered empty. The same is true if the padding character is zeros or nulls if you prefer, or any other defined padding character. So here's an example of a LightWave client schema with the hide if empty property set on 2 elements. And here, if the optional if spaces element is filled with spaces, it won't be serialized into the message because hide if empty is set to true and the string padding is set to spaces. Similarly, if optional if zeros is filled with zeros, hide if empty is set to true, so it won't be serialized either. And here's the equivalent LightWave Server dictionary definition showing the same hide if empty string padding configuration as XML attributes on the dictionary elements. Now, hide if empty is great if you have simple string fields or structures containing string fields because it's fairly easy to ensure that the fields are filled with the appropriate string padding character. And that allows LightWave to quickly determine if a structure or field is empty. But when a structure contains a mix of string and numeric data, we might need finer control on whether or not a field or structure is hidden because we may not be able to set the field or structure to the string padding character. And this can be really challenging if you're working in COBOL, and that's where isSet comes to the rescue. IsSet may be set on any element, and it references another integer element, which is used to indicate the presence or absence of the source element. So if the value of the reference element is non-zero, the referencing element is included in the request. So with isSet, we define another field that we use to indicate that a field should be included in the message. Another advantage of isSet over hideIfEmpty is that it also indicates whether a field is present on an inbound message by setting the reference field to non-zero if it's there. So if your application needs to know for sure whether or not a field was deserialized from an inbound message, isSet is the answer. Here's a LightWave schema example showing how isSet is used. There's a hidden integer field defined, and that field is used to indicate whether element, the address, is present in the message. And note that the reference field has the hide attribute because that's used by the application. We never want it to be part of the message. And here's the equivalent LightWave server dictionary definition with isSet as an XML attribute with the isSet reference field value. Okay, so going back to our address use case, here's a LightWave client example of how we can control whether the address to and the shipping address elements or structure are sent in the message. Here's our new address schema shown in the LightWave client schema editor. And some of our fields here are collapsed, so the whole thing will fit on the screen. The address to element has the hideIfEmpty property defined, and the addresses type has an additional hidden field, isShippingSet defined, which is used to indicate if the shipping address is present in the request message. And remember, on a response, the isShippingSet field will be set to non-zero or 0 to indicate whether or not that structure was present in the response. And here's the equivalent LightWave server dictionary definition. The address to element with the hideIfEmpty attribute and the addresses type with the isShippingSet reference field. And that's all there is to it. You are now an expert on working with optional fields in LightWave Client and LightWave Server. Again, these features are documented in our online documentation at docs.newwavetech.com. Just select your product and navigate to Developer Guide, Advanced Topics, Working with Optional Elements. And if you have any questions or comments about this or any other product feature, head over to our support website and open a case, or just send us an email at support@newwavetech.com. Thanks for watching, and keep an eye on our YouTube channel for new product tutorials and demos.